Welcome to Creator Upload, your creator economy podcast. I am Joshua Cohen.
And I am Ben Relles.
Ben Relles, thanks so much for being in the building. Today, Lauren Schnipper is incommunicado. She's out and about, je ne sais quoi, who knows where or what she's up to. But Ben, we're lucky to have you back on the Creator Upload stage. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Josh.
And you are, we've known each other for 20 years now, give or take?
20 years, yeah.
And you, like myself, are an OG online video creator economy executive. You were one of the early YouTube creator, then at Next New Networks, then at YouTube and YouTube Originals. Currently, you're the founder and CEO of Make Believe. I am stoked to talk to you all about what you're up to at Make Believe and more about what's going on in the AI and entertainment space. But first, there's a lot of news for us to get to.
Let's do it.
Netflix is doing a lot of deals with YouTube creators. So I just want to put this into context for everybody and give everyone a little bit of a history. Netflix did its first deal with YouTube creators arguably in 2016 with Colleen Ballinger, aka Miranda Sings. Did you ever watch Haters Back Off? Do you remember that show?
Oh yeah, definitely watched it, yeah.
And this was a time when Netflix was not doing a lot of originals. And so you kind of watched all the originals Netflix was doing. So I remember people would figure out what I do, and their relationship to what I did for a living was they had watched Haters Back Off on Netflix.
Right. Yeah, at that point there was like a few things. Grace Helbig had a show. There was a point where Fred had a movie, but there wasn't a lot that was like something where people would see billboards and know about it.
After that, they didn't work a lot with creators, but then in 2020, Netflix brought on CoComelon, and they brought on part of CoComelon's library, and they produced some other programming with them. It was a huge boon, and I think kind of like a proof of concept for Netflix that this YouTube native content could then convert to streaming minutes. There were a few different times while CoComelon was on Netflix that it was one of, if not the most viewed watched shows on the platform. That didn't last necessarily. From the first half of 2023 to the second half of 2024, CoComelon viewership on Netflix dropped 60%, and Disney then picked up CoComelon. But it still proved out this model that they're expanding to this day. And so after CoComelon 2020, The Amazing Digital Circus, a huge breakout hit on YouTube, came to Netflix in October 2024. November 2024, there was the infamous Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight. Then in 2025, saw Miss Rachel, The Sidemen's Inside, Mark Rober, and more come to the platform. And now in 2026 alone, you have huge deals with Salish Matter and Jordan Mather. $100 million deal with Jay Shetty bringing his On Purpose podcast onto Netflix. Alan Chicken Chow and Alex Earl have done deals with Netflix. And just this month alone, the Stokes twins, Rhett and Link, and Nick DiGiovanni have all announced deals with Netflix. Now, the majority of these are that library programming, pre-existing programming is going to go on to Netflix and be viewable on that platform. And with some of them, though, they're going to create new kinds of programming. Like Nick DiGiovanni, his catalog is going to go on to Netflix, or specific pieces of his catalog will be there. But then he's also developing a new podcast with Netflix that will presumably live, by and large, exclusively on that platform. So, Ben, as you have this history with YouTube and making originals for YouTube, like, what do you think of the current state of this entertainment ecosystem?
The last couple of weeks have been pretty remarkable in terms of the number of announcements. I think you covered them all, but there's a lot of different types of deals. There's like the library licensing, there's original shows, there's deals like Jay Shetty, where I think he's leaving YouTube entirely and going on Netflix. And then there's these like development deals like the Jordan Matter one, where they're going to do multiple shows together. It's, first of all, just bizarre having been at YouTube for so long. I was there 10 years, turning on Netflix and just seeing what I consider YouTubers all over the screen. But it makes sense. I feel like perhaps Netflix felt like they're kind of losing the living room to YouTube. More and more people are watching these long form shows on YouTube. And that seems to be most of what they're buying, not just, a creator's content, but actual shows that they feel like fit into the way other people watch Netflix shows. And then probably adjacent to that is all the podcasts they're putting on, which, some of them are creator podcasts, some aren't, but also feels like, another version of Netflix we haven't seen before.
I think Netflix has to do something else here. They basically, like, their user base can't expand indefinitely. There's only so many people in the world. And so how do they increase the amount of time people are on the platform so they can maintain their subscribers, lower churn, and then also get more advertising revenue for ad-supported tiers? And they can probably do that more cheaply and at large with licensing this content basically from creators who made it on YouTube and bringing it over to their platform. I think it's interesting the consumption habits of different people. Like, as a parent of young children, especially when they were younger,
Yeah.
I remember going over to friends' houses and them not letting their kids watch YouTube, but they would watch YouTubers on like HBO Max or wherever else
Okay.
they were licensed and syndicated. And
Yep.
it showed that there was this appetite for a little bit of a more curated catalog of content that can be in a little bit more of a screened environment. And
Right. Like
so
not just curated, but they knew that if they were there, they'd only watch that and not end up bouncing around the rest of the platform.
right, and the algorithm can be a scary place for some people, especially parents. And then Netflix also has to figure out like what to do with this YouTube issue. They used to not care about it before. Reed Hastings famously said our biggest competitor is sleep, and now Ted Sarandos is praising / disparaging YouTube at any given public speaking engagement. And it's because YouTube has this biggest watch time in terms of streamers on US televisions, bumping up to 12 or 13% to Netflix's like 7 to 9%. And also the revenue as well. So in 2025, YouTube pulled in over $60 billion in total revenue. That's ads plus subscriptions, $40.4 billion worth of advertising. And by contrast, Netflix is guiding to hit $50 to $52 billion in total revenue for all of 2026. So it makes YouTube not this minor player anymore, this like cute component of Google. It makes it a real powerhouse that's on the same level in terms of revenue and definitely watch time as Netflix. So they have to figure out what to do. You coming from YouTube and being a big part of that organization, especially the originals that were over there, how does it make you feel, or what do you think when Sarandos calls YouTube a quote farm league for entertainment?
Let's see. I mean, I left YouTube 4 years ago, but I still kind of feel like, oh man, we're more than just the farm leagues. We've got the best talent in the world, even though it's not we anymore. But we even talked about that then, that like originals, I was on the team from 2015 to about 2020. And we would talk about, well, if a creator has built their audience on YouTube and then they've got this big giant project they want to do, we want them to know that YouTube can be a place for that project. And that was a big part of the whole thesis, was that, you know, whether it was like a big Markiplier interactive series or Liza Koshy's scripted show or a Dude Perfect documentary, you know, you take these creators and their big projects can live on YouTube. I think the challenge is that the economics are tough when you're trying to do, you know, big movies, multi-million-dollar projects on AVOD on YouTube, and it makes more sense behind a paywall. So initially with YouTube Red, which was on YouTube Premium, the idea was that you could do these shows with a big creator and then that would drive subscription. But I think once we went to AVOD, it was tough. One, because of the economics, but also because, you know, ultimately like we could do a big project like a Dude Perfect documentary,
Yeah.
and their fans loved it and they loved it, but it didn't actually get more views than a regular Dude Perfect video. And so you're always balancing this version of like, well, it needs to be big and something they could never do before, but it can't be so different that their fans aren't going to watch it and it's not going to work in the algorithm. And so, yeah, ultimately, I think YouTube is the greatest collection of creativity ever on, you know, any media. But when creators have like a movie they want to make, they're not going to be able to put that out for free on YouTube.
Do you think that like a version of YouTube originals would make more sense today, especially with just given there's more consumption of long form content, especially on televisions? Like, would it work if you were at it today?
I mean, if it would work today, I think a bigger factor than long form consumption on televisions is just that there's so many more YouTube Premium subscribers. Like when we started YouTube Red, it was the same time that YouTube Red was a brand new service, no ads, downloads, original content. And so we were kind of challenged with, we'd put out a show, everybody would go subscribe to see the PewDiePie show, but it was one of only 5 shows. Now, because there's so many YouTube Premium subscribers, I actually think you could build buzz on a show just from the existing, you know, subscribers, not using it as a way to get people onto the platform. And yeah, I mean, I'm biased. I think YouTube originals could still totally work, but the era then that we were doing was like, how do we bring people in to a subscription service versus how do we have like extra content for these tens of millions of subscribers?
Right.
That era did have a lot of that. Like that there was like a moment where Go 90 and I'm trying to remember who else, Snap Originals, Facebook Watch, YouTube. There was like a lot of social platforms doing original content. And then that went away. And now this feels like probably a more sustainable wave where a lot of these major platforms, not just Netflix, but Disney and Fox and others, are figuring out who the right YouTube creators are to partner with that can pull off bigger projects.
And so do you see this as just like this is the way the ecosystem is going to act for a while, where creators are going to get big on YouTube, they're going to have a lot of appeal, they're going to have this big library, Netflix is going to pick up their content for probably a fraction of the price they would pay for like the Law and Order catalog.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it's going to operate? Or do you see YouTube as trying to compete with Netflix now too, of creating more or facilitating more, or trying to have more of this?
Yeah.
I don't want to say high quality, but this more Netflixy type of programming, traditional television type of programming on the platform.
Right. I guess I'll answer those separately. I think there will probably be a lot more of these licensing deals. It makes sense. Like the Rhett and Link one, they make such a great show, and now you can watch it somewhere else. I don't think that negatively impacts their YouTube show.
Right.
I'm curious to see how things like the Jay Shetty deal play out, because to me, the amazing thing about YouTube is you can have this dialogue with your audience, and it feels very different when you can actually, read comments, comment back, do all the things you can do on a social platform. And you lose all of that if you're like, I'm done with YouTube and everything I do now is going to be on Netflix. So that one to me feels, maybe a little more TBD. And then the second question, YouTube. I mean, YouTube in general definitely feels like more and more it's moved towards shows as a way for a channel to break through, not just in terms of like building audience. That was always the case. If you have like consistent formats, great way to like keep your audience knowing what's going to come next. But also when you're creating those shows, I think that resonates more with buyers like Netflix. Like this is something that fits into the way that they program. And I think advertisers also like plugging into shows. So I think, you'll see more and more long form shows on YouTube.
At a level that you would see on a Netflix or an HBO or another subscription service?
Well, I guess it depends what you mean by like at a level. Like at a level of, writing, quality, what I want to watch. Like, there'll be some 25-minute shows on YouTube that I'd want to watch just as much. If you're saying at a level like production budgets, that's kind of what I was saying before. No, I don't think it makes sense for any channel except for like Mr. Beast and 2 or 3 more to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a video. Like that's not going to make sense for very many channels. But that said, I still think like my son happens to watch almost exclusively long form YouTube content. That is like his genre, 30 to 60 minute long explainer videos. And he'll text me, I just watched this whole thing about how gambling works and how terrible FanDuel is. He'll like go deep on a subject on YouTube in a way that I think is like some of the best parts about YouTube, and that you don't find, on a channel like Netflix.
And I guess YouTube has kind of gotten into this more premium programming, or at least facilitating more of this premium programming by spinning up this team that basically acts as a ad agency or a connector between brands and creators at the platform. This was what their whole upfronts presentation was about at Brandcast. Colin Samir just came out with a miniseries brought to you by Lexus L Studio.
The official car of Colin and Samir.
It's going to appear on their channel, and then also be cut up into different types of media that then is going to be distributed all across YouTube as advertisements. I guess that's a way where it could maybe in the future, there could be some advertiser supported programming that feels big.
That's true.
In a way that some of these other programs do.
There's a handful of those. The announcements at Brandcast this year felt a little bit like, to me, our AVOD announcements from 4 or 5 years ago, where it was like, we're going to do a few big showcase, shows that, should kind of like show what's possible on YouTube with these big YouTube stars and traditional talent. I guess I'm saying more like, I don't think you're suddenly going to see that scale into like dozens and hundreds of those types of formats. I think that, those are probably more unique. And then, there's kind of this like middle ground, I guess, where you start to see more and more channels try to figure out what is going to be like our way to have a consistent show that continues to get better and better without needing that, brand to sponsor, because if that brand goes away, the show disappears. So like, I did happen to watch the Colin and Samir episode, the Lexus one. It's like a 5-minute, Samir learns to play guitar, they're on the road. I don't think that'll be a thing that they do with Lexus for years and years. It feels like, a limited series with a brand, and which is great. They do, a lot of great stuff. But I think that's kind of different than, okay, this is like the new Colin and Samir show moving forward.
So a lot of interesting activity going on in the ecosystem now, but this does it's not quite the same as it was before. It feels more sustainable or something now.
I think that's true. I mean, on the one hand, I feel like every year has been the year of the creator for the last 10 years. And on the other hand, I do actually think this year, it's like anybody listening to this podcast probably has seen all of the Cannes posts about this year. Cannes felt different. Creators weren't just invited to the conversation. They were the conversation. And there's like a lot of that kind of, discussion, not just at Cannes, but like along the way over the past, call it whatever it is, 6-12 months, where it feels like there's been this turning point. And so Netflix is part of that. But you are seeing, Disney and Fox and, all of these different places where creators have the potential to do much bigger things than maybe they did before with traditional players. And then the separate part of it is like the movie part became such a big part of the story this year where, I remember like probably when we were talking in 2008, you talk about, well, maybe one day YouTubers will be making movies. And then for whatever reason, this was the year that like Obsession, Backrooms, Iron Lung, suddenly there's these like 3 incredibly profitable movies that are really well done by really smart YouTube creators. And so that probably shifted a different part of the conversation around, oh, this can be new IP and it can be, the types of real breakthrough projects that really aren't about like, oh, they have 3 million followers, let's like convert those followers, and more about the directors of those projects being so talented and just getting better and better at YouTube. So by the time they had a movie, it was the best thing in theaters. And Markiplier is probably both. His is different. Like he's massive and he's also really talented and he has like real strong fanship. So he got both. I think he got word of mouth on the movie and also his fans really showed up. But Backrooms and Obsession, like I don't think that's a story of, wow, these people had so many YouTube fans that all showed up to the movie. It was more like they got better and better on YouTube at storytelling, and now they made the best new movies this year,
I would agree with you on the Obsession side. I think the ability to hone your craft on YouTube and produce a lot of videos and get a lot of feedback leads to better videos and honing your craft faster and stronger. In terms of Kane Parsons with Backrooms, I think it was both. He's obviously very good at what he does, but he didn't create the genre, but he basically popularized the whole genre. Like,
right. That's true.
I wouldn't know what Backrooms is if I didn't know who Kane Parsons was. Maybe I would know it like I know Slender Man or just like a little bit like it's some weird Reddit meme, but I wouldn't know it to the extent that I do. And so I think like that feels different where he's obviously very good at what he does, but he just had this like incredible IP that he helped manifest into mainstream culture.
That's true. I definitely agree with that. I think part of it is like, he's not a YouTuber in the way a lot of YouTubers are like, the rules have kind of been the same forever. You got to, get a good thumbnail and a good title.
Right.
And the first few seconds have to be good and you have to be on a schedule and you have to be like half marketer, half YouTuber because you're going to be like a full-time YouTuber. And Kane, I just listened to his interview on The Town, but I kind of was aware of it from looking at his channel. Like he doesn't look at all at thumbnails. He doesn't, post on a schedule. He's not like playing the game of how do I get as many YouTube views as possible. But it's really smart of him that he like developed all that buzz and community. I shouldn't even say smart of him. It's just cool that he like developed that on YouTube so that once the movie came out, you're right. There were people that were like super bought into the whole concept.
It's a great gig if you can get it.
No, it's totally true. I was talking to Michael Stevens about this because Michael's the same way. Vsauce, he doesn't post on a schedule. He doesn't worry about thumbnails. And he's like, I love that gives me the freedom to do whatever I want and not worry about every video and is it going to get enough views. But there's very few channels that can do both, have a career and also just post videos when they feel like it's ready and put the creative over everything else. Yeah.
So a lot going on with Netflix and YouTube and in this space. It's cool to see this year finally be the year of creators. I think like this year might also be the year of AI filmmaking, at least after talking to you. You brought my attention to this meme that is some guy with a smiley face being like, oh, I haven't seen as much AI online recently. And then him
Right.
with a dreaded face being like, I haven't seen as much AI online recently.
That's right. Yeah. I think
So,
it's the Lord of the Rings meme. Yeah.
and you're ingrained in this ecosystem. Like, what are you seeing here, and how is this different than how it's been before?
Let's see, how's it different than before? Some of it is just the quality of the films have gotten to a point now where they can just stand on their own. It's not like, wow, AI did that. It's just the stuff looks so good that some of the, videos that you're starting to see that are AI generated feel like the kind of short films that, are the highest quality. And it still comes down to like the storytelling and the idea and everything else, but like you're no longer distracted by, oh, I can tell that's made by AI when you're looking at stuff by the people who are the best at doing this. In terms of what's different now, I mean, one way I think about it is like, people talk a lot about AI slop and that's starting to fill our feeds. And I know every time I've done a podcast, every time I've listened to anything from anybody who worked at YouTube, they talk about how, early YouTube and AI and the similarities. But I will say that like AI video is pretty new and there's not that many people that know how to do it. So when YouTube first started, it was such a small community of people that were making videos that I think it was kind of dismissed. I don't think they used the word slop, but they were basically saying that. It was like people in their bedrooms very early just figuring things out.
Right.
And like we're at that stage, I think, with AI video. There's very few people who are, putting in the time to make videos right now. And as a result, there's not, I think, like the volume to have enough of these like breakthrough videos. But the couple that I sent you, that one like Living with a Merman and the one that I showed you, Elder Boy, like those were two examples I saw on Monday night for the first time where I sent those out to people, nothing to do with it being AI, just I thought they were really great short videos. So I think the big thing is the quality of what you can produce now with these tools, the cost coming down, and the number of people that are actually playing with them.
Yeah, if you zoom out and squint, there's so many similarities between the creator ecosystem and the AI ecosystem, and it basically comes down to democratized tools of production and cost of distribution.
Yes, and again, I don't mean to caveat it, but I gave a VidCon presentation in 2023, and I remember just feeling like this is a banger. YouTube democratized distribution. AI will democratize production quality. I just thought it sounded so good. But then like that has become the, kind of closest, talk. I'm not saying I came up with it, but it felt like this, fresh point. And, the idea of YouTube at the time being this like small community where I think it felt like we were, constantly trying to prove ourselves. Like, we're not just, YouTubers. We are going to be the future of content. And like we've been talking about on this podcast, 20 years later, I do think that kind of played out. When you're at these events with people who are all in on sort of AI filmmaking and the AI tools, you do get a similar sense of this is finally a way for people to make real projects, real movies, real stories without having to have enormous budgets or I'm paraphrasing Jagger Waters, who just spoke at this event, that, you don't have to stay in New York for 10 years as an assistant with barely anybody can afford to do until you finally get your break. You can just start making things. And that is a really inspiring thing. What AI filmmaking probably has that YouTube didn't have is more pushback from the creative community,
Right.
Saying this is taking jobs or this is unethical or whatever it is. I think that when I was a YouTube creator in 2007, like I definitely felt dismissed by big media. I remember being on a panel and somebody from one of the platforms was like, YouTube's great, but there'll always be a need for real storytelling. And it was just like you would hear that kind of stuff a lot. Okay, so then with this, there's a little bit more of I think, well, I should say more than a little bit more. There's a clear divide between people that feel like this is a big part of the future of entertainment and you better embrace it, and people that feel like we gotta put the brakes on this because this is unfair or not real or whatever.
Right. And to pick up on that paraphrase quote you gave from Jagger Waters, who is an AI storyteller, she said, quote, "The era of waiting your turn in line, sitting for 11 hours a day as someone's assistant and hoping you'll be considered for the creative work that you can see others doing is over. And I hope we can openly admit at this point that this was never a pipeline that rewarded innovation." To the naysayers and AI haters, I hope AI inspires you. I hope you take productive action with your indignation. I hope you're so affected that you pick up a clarinet and learn to play it. I hope you catalyze your feelings into power by tapping into the innately human creative gifts you didn't even realize you had.
You could sort of feel in the room while Jagger is giving this presentation and we're screening all these great films that it's people who are very passionate about the creativity, the ability to do things you could never do before. So, that part is inspiring. And sometimes you go to a creator conference and there's like panels about thumbnails and, how do you make money with brands and all that. And it's kind of like that hasn't hit the AI, filmmaking world as much yet. I'm sure it will. But now most of it is like just discussions of C dance versus, the latest models. And the conversation is really a creative one. There's really, really creative, talented people in the space. But I also totally get why other people would be frustrated, feeling like this is replacing, the worlds that they used to live in.
You should check out Living with the Merman and Elder Boy. Ben sent me these links. They're fantastic. We'll put them in the show notes. Definitely give them a watch. And Ben, you're in this space partly because you're the CEO and founder of Make Believe. Give us the quick log line on Make Believe and what you're all up to.
Sure. Make Believe, new company I started a few months ago with Margaret Burris, who I worked with at YouTube. We are focused on interactive video, specifically video where it feels like you can have a conversation with the video. And this came from working with Reid Hoffman. We created a digital twin of Reid that sounded like him, looked like him, and most importantly, it would answer questions drawing on all of his interviews and podcasts and books he's written. And so it felt like you were talking to Reid. And the more that we worked on that project, the more we started to take on some other projects, the more we felt like this could be a big part of the future of storytelling, like real interactive videos that feel like you can actually participate with them. And the initial company is focused on both original IP that we would create, but we do have some partners. We're doing like a project with the History Channel and we're working with Amazon. And so it's both figuring out how to create avatars with creators that might want to scale all the content that they've done, but also other projects where we feel like having a conversation with video is more valuable than the way we've been talking to AI the past few years, which is mostly text and audio.
So Ben, is one kind of realization, is it this like you're watching The Wonder Years and then Fred Savage just starts talking to you and you engage in the conversation with him?
Breaks the fourth wall.
Yeah.
I think you could see stuff like that. I mean, I love The Wonder Years, but that was a scripted comedy. We're definitely focusing initially more on, I'd say, unscripted formats. Imagine talking to like a chef or a fitness instructor or a music coach, things where like on YouTube, you would watch a video, but you couldn't pause it along the way and ask other questions of that video. But I think narrative storytelling definitely also will have versions that are different than what, kind of one-way video looked like before. And I actually did a video when we launched where I interviewed a younger version of myself. So I was like a 12-year-old version of me. I took a home video, and kind of turned that into an AI video where I was about the same age as, Fred was during the Wonder Years. And in that video, I will say, like, it was meant just as an experiment. But once I started seeing video of myself, like new videos looked exactly like I did when I was 12.
Yeah.
It was a little bit surreal. It did make me think, aside from unscripted and scripted, there'll also be these other categories that aren't really even content, more just like, okay, what's this going to mean when you can talk to your grandfather that passed away 30 years ago or hear stories from somebody who died 100 years ago? That's kind of a different lane than I'd say like the way we think about original content.
And then for the near term, though, it's when your son Ethan is watching a 60-minute YouTube video, the idea that you could kind of like pause and be like, wait, what was that about the Roman Empire?
Yeah. And not just hear an answer, but be able to pull another video in real time and, demonstrate things through video versus just explaining it.
So Ben, just from an entrepreneurial perspective, you left
Yeah.
like the cushiest job at YouTube ever.
Okay.
And then to go start your own company, like what's that like? What made you take the leap? What made you so invested in this? I'm guessing,
Yeah.
and it's not great to answer a question for someone right after you've asked, but I'd like to hear. I'm
But
guessing it's because like you saw this ecosystem early on in when you were creating viral videos, and then you were a YouTube creator,
yeah.
and you saw into the future. And I'm guessing it's
Yeah.
the same kind of thing now.
Let's see. I didn't have the cushiest job at YouTube. The last couple of years when Originals was on the ropes were very stressful. But I did love working at YouTube. I was at YouTube yesterday for some meetings. It was very bizarre walking around. I barely knew anybody. But I would say that what I love about starting something new is the feeling of starting something from scratch, I think is the best. That when I started like a YouTube channel originally, that feeling of it going from one video to a team to a channel with fans, love that. The YouTube experience was also great. There's definitely still things I miss about being in that building on those teams. But I would say, yeah, the idea here is a combination of love building things from scratch, love trying to do things that haven't been done before. And I am really excited about this idea of new formats that aren't just more sort of like short form doom scrolling, but really feel immersive and interactive. I'd say the difference though is that YouTube, when I started that channel, it was already off to the races. Like it was very clear if you just kind of like had a sense of how people were spending their time. Oh, this is where everything's going. Maybe it won't be YouTube forever. At the time when I was on YouTube in 2007, MySpace was big and there were other platforms, but it was clear this wasn't like a Ben theory. Like when people can create videos and build audiences from scratch, that is undeniable. That's going to be a completely transformational thing. This idea of, what's it going to be like when we can actually interact with videos in real time is much earlier, not defined. Most of the examples right now are enterprise because it's still very expensive.
Right.
And so I would say, we're earlier in the process here, and it's not as much of a sure thing as YouTube. But on the other hand, I do think that the type of value you can get, and then we learned a lot from the Read AI experience, when you can have a conversation with somebody that you could never access otherwise, and it feels real and looks real, I do think there's going to be like incredible value there.
That makes a lot of sense. Where can people find out all about it and what you're up to?
I'm going to start leaning into LinkedIn more. I mean, Reed did start LinkedIn. I put up 2 posts this week, which is like, unusual for me. That's a lot. So yeah,
like a
find me on LinkedIn.
Streak of posts.
That's right. LinkedIn.com/in/Ben Relles. And I'm gonna try to start posting there more.
And then for Make Believe, we can find you there too?
Makebelieve.co. We put up our news there, our job listings. If you're listening to this, you probably just, shoot me an email if we haven't talked in a while.
Ben, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This has been fantastic.
Josh, thanks for having me. Loved it.
And I think that's it. I'll see you back next week here with Lauren Schnipper, who's presumably will be done messing around with her own AI avatar and Make Believe.
Sure, let's do it.
If not there, next week on Creator Upload. Today's show was produced by Lauren Schnipper, Joshua Cohen, that's me, and Adam Connor. It's edited by Adam Connor too. Original music is by London Bridge. You can check him out on Instagram at London Bridge Music. Make sure you subscribe to Creator Upload right here on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, as well Spotify, or wherever you're listening. While you're there, give us a rating and leave us a comment. If you want to talk, hit us up at info@creatorupload.com. If you like our show, recommend it to a friend. If you love it, just tell everyone. Thanks for listening to Creator Upload, and we will be back next week.